I regularly ask potential coaching clients, what do you want? Sometimes they'll say something along the lines of, I'm too scared to say it out loud. What if it doesn't come true? When they finally share their secret desire with me, it sometimes includes walking the stage at their company convention. Then I'm able to let them know that I have a process to make that happen. I've used it myself and with many other leaders to get them into the top 10. I'm working to become more efficient, so I created a guide called 5 Ways to Get in the Top 10 so I could share it with them after the complimentary coaching session. Recently, I realized I didn't have to wait until someone booked a complimentary coaching session with me. I could share it with way more people if I just put it on my website and pointed more people to it. So, if you'd like to know the 5 steps to get into the top 10 at your company, go to badassdirectsalesmastery.com/top dash 10, and that's TEN spelled out. And I'll send you the guide so you can start the process.
Welcome to the Badass Direct Sales Mastery Podcast with your direct sales dom, Jennie Bellinger. Badass Direct Sales Mastery is a podcast for rock star direct sales moms who are determined to make their business kick ass. Jennie will share her knowledge of effective sales and recruiting techniques, tips to get what you want from your business, and will interview direct sales professionals and leaders from various companies. The interviews will give insight to how these rock stars got to where they are and where they plan to grow in the future. And now, the direct sales dom, Jennie Bellinger.
Welcome back to another episode of Badass Direct Sales Mastery. I'm your host, your direct sales dom, Jennie Bellinger, helping you whip your business into shape. And today I have with me Dr. Fanny Leboulanger. And here's what's so fun. Fanny is a French without the French accent physician, a sassy self-love and pleasure coach, and a recovering self-hater. So now y'all know why she's here. After many years practicing gynecology on a daily basis, she noticed something was missing and she decided to use her skills to help people fall in love again with themselves, step out of sexual numbness and boredom, life autopilot, and self-hate. And yes, those do work together. With a coaching methodology combining ancient wisdom and up-to-date scientific tools, a bilingual podcast, and a French sense of humor, ooh la la, she dedicates her life to helping people build their own sexyfied life to reclaim the lifegasm they deserve with thriving sex as a bonus. Welcome to the show, Fanny.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here and thank you for that introduction. I think that's the sexiest way it's been read.
Oh, good. I like that. And I hope other podcasters take that as a challenge. Let's see who can do it the sexiest. Plus, well, I've been told I just ooze sexuality. So anytime I have a chance to play with something like that, I do. So Fanny, you and I met through an online virtual networking opportunity for people who were looking for speaking opportunities and podcast hosts who were looking for guests. And as soon as I saw your name, I was like, oh, she's French, or at least French Canadian. And I was right. And we had an amazing conversation and I knew I had to have you on the show. So tell us about your journey starting as a physician, practicing with family to where you are today. How'd you get to this?
I love sharing that journey. And if you want to laugh, I'm definitely French and Le Boulanger literally means the baker. Just putting that out there.
Nice. A French baker.
Yeah, exactly. So I am a family doctor. And I've been trained with the gynecology skills. I can do the pap smears, the IUDs, and the birth control and things like that. And a few things happened at the same time. On my personal life, I have a basic history of life knocking at the door once, twice, 3 times, 4 times until it cracks and you get the door into your face. Bitch, you're gonna look at what I have in store for you.
Mm-hmm.
I was so proud of my head being so strong and submitting, my body being so proud of, yeah, body, you're going to do what I want you to do, until my body decided to switch my head off with a diagnosis of epilepsy out of the blue at age 26.
Oh, wow.
That sucks. So I had to do some digging personally for me first. So I started with yoga and meditation a little bit and fell right into the beautiful and yet so triggering rabbit hole of self-development. I did a shit amount of work on myself. It helped me tremendously. And yet, that's when things get interesting, because at the same time of this, yet, a few things happened in my professional life. So I was working with women on a daily basis, and I had so many women that I had to send to see a sexologist because I had no answer for them. Like, we did the exams, we did the blood tests, we did the ultrasounds, we used the medications, and yet, or they had issues in their partnership or pain during sex that I had no answer to. And so it was like, you're going to go see a sexologist. They have 6 months of waiting time. And I'm like, there's something wrong if I have to send 3 women out of 4 to see a sexologist. There is something wrong. Then, at the same time, I remember this patient being 34 and whispering in a quiet voice, like, "Doctor, I think I'm broken because I never had an orgasm. I'm not even sure I can have that for me." So literally broke my heart as a healthcare practitioner. And at the same time, in my personal life, I was getting tired of getting my orgasms only for my partner. I was lucky enough to have orgasms, but I was like, how come he is the one giving them to me? Like, this is not
right.
So I started to explore for my patients and for me, and discovered what was the missing piece of this amazing self-development work that I did. That is embodiment. That is digesting your body-mind meeting. What's in the middle? Where your traumas, where your history, where all of the amazing greatness and the messy bullshit is stored. And that's when I started to study this sex coaching certification that I took, that was so detailed and profound and that I fell in love with, and alchemizing that and my physician skills and zero bullshit tolerance, let's put it that way. So that's where I am today, working one-on-one and sharing the wisdom that I get in the podcast.
Oh, that is fantastic. And I know that when you and I talked, we talked about the implications of somebody going through this self-development exercise of learning about themselves and their body and addressing the traumas and where all of that messy stuff meets in the middle, as you just talked about, and how it improves not only their personal life, but oftentimes it shows up in their business, because this is a business-based podcast. So let's talk about that. How is it that somebody's orgasms or lack thereof could impact their business? That is so interesting.
There are so many answers to that question. The first one is how, when you digest your bullshit, when you digest your trauma, when you look, I wouldn't say digest your bullshit, but when you look at your own bullshit and decide to deal with it for real and stop doing your superficial work, then suddenly this digestion that has an impact on your sex life has an impact overall. If you're building your true power and owning that I am responsible of my pleasure, you're building the I am responsible of my power. And when you say I am responsible of my power in your life, that shows up in your business too. Suddenly you're way less sensitive to marketing bullshit and things telling you that you should do things differently and following this method that you're going to pay thousands of dollars to get a foolproof formula that if you're buying it, it's probably too late because it worked on you. Just putting that out there.
I love that.
And when you build pleasure, when you use pleasure, pleasure is our birthright because we have an orgasm organ, like a pleasure organ. That's the clitoris if you have a female at birth body. And the clitoris has no other purpose than pleasure. So we could say first that trying to convince women and people identifying as women or having a female at birth bodies, trying to distract them or make them feel that pleasure is sinful or is something they should be afraid of or they shouldn't want is a great way to control or to try to control those people. Trying to tell people what their birthright is wrong is the best way to disempower them. And so when you call that bullshit, when you remember that, hey, pleasure is my birthright, suddenly that bullshit loses its grip. And that impacts your business. Because suddenly when you feel powerful, again, you're less permeable to all of the bullshit that is playing on your disempowered pieces, on your fears, on your doubts. Of course, you will be doubtful. You will have doubts and you will mess up. We all do that. But when you do that from a place of empowerment and pleasure, when you do it from a place of me. And so if I mess up from me, then I am responsible for the consequences. Whereas if you mess up because someone's strategy didn't work, first, you lost a shit amount of money. And second, there is another voice that is like, you knew that wasn't the plan and you decided to do it anyway. So you're getting double pain.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've had the episode talking about pleasure versus pain. Somebody being a masochist in their own life and business because they're spending too much time worrying about the pain part instead of guiding through their gut, guiding through what feels right, what feels pleasurable, right? Which is so interesting. I did that episode forever and it's coming back up now. And I also want to point out for those of you who are watching on YouTube, my shirt says empowered women, empower women. And I wore that today because I knew I was seeing Fanny. And for those of you who cannot see us because you're listening to this podcast, empowered women, empower women. That's what we do. We don't try and hold each other down. We go, we're straightening each other's crowns and helping each other out. And so that's why I wanted to bring Fanny on, because this conversation around pleasure, especially, has been such a taboo thing for way too long.
Yeah.
It's time to bring it to the forefront, y'all.
Hell yes. And pleasure builds safety. Because when you honor what's your birthright, so when you honor your pleasure, you're allowing your body to function on its natural supply, on its natural fuel. And so that helps you build safety in your nervous system. That helps you expand your window of tolerance and owning your resources. And that's definitely what you want to have in your business. Being strong and being connected to what's true and feel safer or safe. Whatever bullshit is thrown at you, let's also acknowledge that there will be times where this bullshit definitely will impact you anyway, even if you have worked on yourself a lot already. But allowing that helps being in your business from a different place, from a place of, I can handle this and I can handle this with peace, with calm, because I feel safe and whatever is coming at me will not shake me. Or if it shakes me, I can come back to feeling good. And that helps your business, your sex life, and your life overall.
Ah, I love that so much. Oh my gosh. So one of the things you addressed briefly, covered briefly, was the surface level and the going deep. So let's talk about that part. So what would you consider to be the surface level work versus when people start to go deeper and really get, knee deep, hip deep, ankle deep, waist deep in their own bullshit? What's the difference?
I love that question. I think the superficial part is everything that is going on. I'm, of course, exaggerating and putting that out there. But the quick fixes and methods and things that you can read on the internet, on social media, or in magazines, the how-tos. In my opinion, how-tos are interested with education, from an education perspective.
Okay.
Like, at some point, you will need to learn how your body functions. And so when you know that, having ideas of what to do with your body, if you don't have the inspiration, using those informations as a how-to and an inspiration for your methods, that's a good thing. The only problem is that because it's presented as quick fixes / always efficient, and if they don't work on you, there is a problem with you, or you don't want it that bad, or you're broken or whatever, they only address the superficial. If we take pleasure, the idea of, let's say, do self-pleasure sessions and massage your clitoris 3 times a week to suddenly be the sex goddess that you want to be. If you're afraid of your own genitalia, if you feel that sex is disgusting, if you feel you're not safe with the person you're trying to have sexual interaction with, if you are deep in self-hate, how come the self-pleasure 3 times a week would work?
Yeah, it's not gonna. No.
And that's when the deep work starts. And the deep work isn't sexy. But when you do it, you get what I call the sexyfied, because it's more alive, it's more vibrant, because it heals the roots. When you heal self-hate, or at least when you progress on healing the self-hate root, if you heal or progress on making peace with your genitalia, if you work on your self-love, if you work on your self-respect, that's the deep work. And when you do that deep work, you're gonna get right into your face everything that you have forgotten or put under the rug for decades. And that goes way beyond that press on this button or caress your breasts this way so that you can get orgasms. Yay!
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense, that it's the going into where everything came from, how it can impact your ability to experience the pleasure, to go through that, and then how that, because I can see the direct line between, if that's what's going on in your personal life, then there's probably also some things like that are going on in your business life. The surface level, let me do the quick fix for this in my business, instead of going through and dealing with your deep down,
fears,
stories you're telling yourself. Yeah. The fears, the things that, you think without knowing you're necessarily thinking it, because your subconscious believes it in terms of around your business. And if you don't deal with those things, you're not going to be able to experience the success. Just like in your body, if you don't deal with your internal stuff, you're not going to experience the success of an orgasm. Right? Oh my gosh. And so one of the things that I think we talked about, jumping back to our conversation before in my head, because we talked, I think, a couple weeks ago, was the fear. And I know here in the US, it's so interesting, the difference between how Americans approach the human body and sex versus, for example, Europeans, right? Because for us, it's okay to put certain things on TV and movies, but it's not okay to have the human body or sexual things because that's dirty and bad and awful, right? Whereas you can open up a magazine in Europe and, oh, look, there's a human body without clothing sometimes. Not all the time and not every magazine, but it's going to happen more often in a magazine in Europe than here in the US. So with that, how do you deal with the cultural differences of view? I mean, are there cultural differences, do you find, or have you found that nope, pretty much people are people?
I would say that first, America influences us much more than what you think. Like, we have a lot in common because of the US influence. Also, it varies for like social and professional categories and things like that. So putting that out there, there is this cliche about how French people are connected to their sensuality and are having amazing orgasms. No, we're like just everyone, just like everyone. Just putting that out there.
Okay, good to know.
Back to your question, I think it's a question of consent and helping people recognize their self-consent. That's what I always do in the work that I do with my coachees. Like, how come sex is painful if you every month insert a tampon with being like, oomph, because it hurts? Of course, sex will be painful after that. So there's this whole deconstruction work first. But in the end, when I work with a person who lives in the US or even a different country in Europe, it's not really the culture, it's just the person. Someone will be perfectly happy with me saying pussy, and truth to be told, I really not care because it doesn't have an emotional charge in me because English is not my first language. And some people will like close right away.
Oh,
and
wow.
So it's really interesting to honor how far can I go? What language are you comfortable with? Just like when you ask a question to someone, like before, I think it's really important in the type of work that we're doing. Even if you do that in a business coaching, for example, like if you ask the question and the person is not ready to hear it, even if the question is great, it's going to bounce back and the person is not going to get anything from it. So it's really important, more than the culture, to consider where the person is and consider what is going on in their life on a daily basis. Because sometimes when my coach is on fire, she's totally on go for pussy. I don't care. I'm up for it. And the day after, when the high vibe and pleasure is gone, I'm like, well, not the day after, but like the week after, oh my God, can we go back to vagina, please?
Hey, but I think in anybody's journey through all of this, there's going to be times when we take massive leaps forward and sometimes take a few steps backward. And just recognizing that, just like the meme that people have probably seen on social media about what people think success looks like. And it's this straight line from, not successful to successful. But in reality, it's this curvy, all over the place roller coaster until it eventually makes it up to the top right corner of success. The same can be said about self-development, that we're going to take steps forward and steps backward and steps to the side that feel like it's moving forward sometimes and not. So as you've been working with your clients on this, going through and having those conversations and working through this, what are some of the interesting outcomes that they've shared with you that weren't related to their body that came out of them going through this process with you?
I had someone finally live her marriage.
Oh, interesting.
Because when she reconnected to her roots and power, she was like, I'm done with this. So I really had that. In the end, I would say coaching is such a basic work to the core. It's like having a business. To have a business, you need to have something to sell, people to sell it, and a way to collect payments. We could say something like that about coaching. It's about helping people reconnecting to their true essence and to their powers. And there are tons of different ways to do that. And so the impact can be in the marriage. I do want to point out that I don't really do business per se. Like I do mix pleasure and business on me because sex magic practices is amazing. We can talk about that after.
Yeah.
It's in their personal life and in their body image and in their sex life that I see the best results.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, and that's so interesting too, though, but it makes perfect sense that when somebody figures out who they are and what they're willing to accept and not accept, and they realize this isn't happening in the relationship, maybe it's time to peace out, right. That's an interesting thing. So, but don't assume, and I'm saying this to the listener, don't assume that just because you work with Fanny, you're going to leave your husband.
Oh no, of course not.
Right?
Because I had the totally opposite. Like I had someone like, I'm going to leave him. And then when I worked with her, she noticed that no, she actually wanted, at least at the moment, to stay and try something new from this place of empowerment. And so that she showed up in her partnership from a place of being her. And when you have that, either the partnership adjusts or it doesn't. But it's really, when you do that, you create a partnership from a place of I am me, you are you, let's making magic, instead of your projection on someone's projection on you, and alchemizing what's in between and projecting on it too, and making this dynamic the responsible of everything.
Yes.
Just for like a business, in a sense, like if you show up in your business as you and as what's true to you, suddenly it's easier to follow your impulses and not blame the circumstances, the thing that are the same for everyone. Everybody has a different way to react to that, to respond to that, to answer that. And when you show up from a place of empowerment and truth, of course you're going to get the same shit as everyone else. But you also know that you have your own back. You will be okay.
Oh my gosh. For anybody who's sitting there listening to this going, I want to have my own back. I want to know I'm okay. I want to know all these things. So if they're interested in getting more from you, Fanny, how can they connect with you?
If you loved my voice and my energy, I have my own bilingual podcast. It's called Your Sexyfied Life. Keep the Y at Sexyfied because I'm French. I misspelled it and I loved it better, so I kept it.
Good. Totally fine. We'll have the link to the podcast in the show notes so people can go and listen, because obviously podcast listeners always want more podcasts. And especially if they're enjoying this, they're going to go listen to yours as well and learn a little more. In fact, I'm going to add it to my podcast playlist as soon as we get off here.
Yes.
I'm always open to learning more. I'm obviously very open sexually. But hey, who doesn't want to learn a little bit more?
Hell yes.
Yes. And so one of the things that I know that you and I talked about before and some of the things that you brought up too, is the S&M voice in our heads. So the
SM dungeon of our minds.
Yes.
I love that.
And for those who don't remember, because we did a BDSM education episode early on in the show, but for those of you who haven't gone back to that to learn what all of that is, SM would be the sadomasochistic dungeon. So the pain giving, pain receiving parts of the dungeon in our head. Tell me more about that.
It's really simple. I was telling a loved one about how I have mean inner voices, and then it hooked me like, my head is an unhealthy SM dungeon. Like in an SM dungeon, You have your safe word. You have what is allowed and what is not. You have your boundaries and you know or not the partner you're playing with. But even if you don't know that person, the rules are clear and you have consent and you have the opportunity and the possibility and the responsibility to withdraw consent when you feel challenged and this is too much. Whereas in my head, there are many people who enjoy making me feel bad, feel like shit, feel that I am unworthy, that really put me in a painful situation. And I didn't get consent for that. Like, I'm being yelled at by a fake domina who's just telling me, you suck so hard. How come you're so bad at this? You are so unworthy and unlovable. Whatever you do will always be a mess. You poor little piece of crap. I have like cop that is like, that has always constant opinion about what I want to do, what I should do, what I consider doing, what others are doing, what others are not doing. So constantly having those opinions. I have, for example, a teacher that is like knocking on her watch, being like, I should have done that yesterday. I should have got that yesterday. How come you're so slow? Like, no, yesterday, faster. You're so
right.
Like, I have a mean parent that is like, how come you're not like this person? And this person is so better than you. Or a therapist, that is like, you're such a lost cause. Nobody can help you. There's nothing I can do to help you. Like, I have so many people in my head who are like really enjoying making me feel like shit. And I didn't sign up for that. So that's what I call it, the SM dungeon of my head.
I love that idea because, I've gone through the PQ training with Shirzad. Oh gosh, I can't remember his last name, but I've gone through that training. One of the things he talks about is the judge and all of these different bad voices that we have in our head, right? That very much like what you described there. And for the most part, I feel like I had dealt with a lot of them, but I have found that my procrastination, so like you said, the teacher, like, oh, okay, I need to deal with her. And now I know when she says it, I'm going to be like, I didn't consent to that. You need to back off. I did not consent to that judgment. Thank you very much.
I didn't write that in my notebook. We didn't agree on that. We didn't say the test would be today. You said we would have another week of preparation. No.
Yes. Oh gosh. Love that so much. Oh, that is seriously awesome. Okay. So I could continue talking about all of these things with you, and we will probably have to have you back, especially after I listen to some of your episodes and go, oh, Fanny, this one's juicy. Let's talk about this one. I definitely want to do that. But until then, when you and I were talking at the beginning, before we hit record on the interview, one of the things you decided to do was be super generous with my badass crew, my audience. And you are offering one free session to the first 10 people who come from the badass audience. So,
yes.
And what does that include in that free session?
So that would be 1+1. I always have like a connection call where we start discussing the goals and things like that so that we can see if we're a match or not. That is always free. And what I love doing is having this first call with people about helping them figuring out their goal, but also understanding what is going on behind that goal. It's really what happens usually after that first session is how people notice that what they want is so much deeper than what they thought they wanted. And after that, I have like tons of practices and recordings. I always record something for the coachee that I start a coaching package with. So this is something I really enjoy doing. And yeah, I really wanted to offer that to the first 10 listeners.
Oh, that is awesome. And then anybody who decides to work with you out of those 10, you also are offering a 10% discount on the package. So if they choose to work with you, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's just because I loved the podcast and I really resonated with your work. And I was like, I really want to offer a space for the people listening to her because I really resonate with her work. So
that is awesome. So in order for people to book their session with you, how can they get a hold of you in order to get that complimentary session if they're one of the first 10?
So you can go to Instagram. It's @with Dr. Fanny. I have a complicated or at least love-hate relationship with social media. So if you haven't heard of me on social media for a month, that's normal, but I always check my DMs.
Okay, good. So
and you can also go to the website. It's like www.fannyleboulanger.com.
Okay.
We're going to have that in the show notes because French name. But
exactly.
You have a link to my email and to a Calendly link so that we can discuss right away when it's a good time to schedule a connection call.
Fantastic. So for those of you who are on Instagram, we have Fanny's Instagram link directly in the show notes. So you can just go click on it, make sure you get it right in order to find her, connect with her if you want to take her up on this offer of the complimentary additional coaching session. So there's a discovery session and then also an additional. So that's like 2 coaching sessions in one. That's amazing. And if you, for example, are maybe like, well, I don't know about coaching, but I'd like to explore a little bit further, you also have an ebook available for people. Tell me and tell our audience more about your ebook. What's the title?
It's called Essence, Awaken Your Body to Reclaim the Pleasure of Being Alive. It's really the idea of how to start the journey. Because I know personally, I listened and read and did some tons of work and listening to people, English, and being like, yes, and how do I do that? When people were telling me about pleasure, and when I was like, I can't look at myself in the mirror, I just want to puke, and you're telling me I should love myself, great. How do I do that? And I think it's really important to honor the few first steps about where to start the journey, because it's easy to talk about the end goal. We all know what the end goal is. But the beauty of Essence is that it's filled with practices that are pretty simple, some for your environment, some for your mindset, some for your body. For example, I always advise to start with breast massage when you want to reconnect to your body, because your breasts usually hold so much and they are not as emotionally charged as working directly with your vulva, for example. And also acknowledging that people might need some time. If it's really in this book as well, what I try to honor and help understood is the beauty of self-consent and allowing your rhythm to be your own. So I'm proud of my baby. I could go on and on for hours, but I'm not going to do that because I respect your time. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And so we do have the link to Fanny's book in the show notes. Now, my badass crew, they already know how to get to the show notes. They're good. But just in case this is somebody's first time listening to the episode or watching on YouTube, all you have to do is, if you're on YouTube, just scroll below this video, and there in the description is the link to Fanny's ebook for you. The book called Essence, Awaken Your Body to Reclaim the Pleasure of Being Alive. Yes, I have the title in front of me. I did not memorize it. But if you are listening on your phone, all you have to do is grab your phone, as long as you're not driving, click on today's episode, scroll under Fanny's picture, and you will see the link to her ebook as well, where you can get that. So you don't have to worry about spelling it correctly or anything like that. We've already got it all set for you. So, Fanny, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Oh, this is just so much fun. I love these episodes that, walk that line of titillating, taboo, fun, etc. So that makes it so much more fun for everybody. And yeah, I've told people, like, when you take care of you, it really helps you be able to take care of the rest of the world. So
Hell yes.
yes, absolutely. And so thanks again for being here, Fanny. We super appreciate you being here. And Badass Crew, you know how this goes. Stay tuned because there's another badass episode on its way.
Thanks for listening to the Badass Direct Sales Mastery Podcast with your direct sales dom, Jennie Bellinger. Why are you waiting to go to badassdirectsalesmastery.com? Don't make the dom get her whip. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with another rock star that you know in direct sales after you subscribe to the podcast so you won't miss any future episodes. You can also check out the show notes for links and any contact information mentioned in today's episode. We'll see you next time.